Hey everybody, it is Thursday, July 17th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Wanunu.
And I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. On this, July 17th, World Emoji Day. Jill, where are you on the spectrum of emoji users?
Strong.
Strong.
I am a big emoji user. In preparation for World Emoji Day, I was trying to think what emoji I use the most, and it's the classic red heart. I use it a lot.
Red heart, which is in the top 10, according to recent polling numbers of Americans and global. The red heart, a classic, based on the latest data of Americans. The number one most used emoji in America is the face with tears of joy, like the crying of happiness emoji. 10% of Americans say that is their top choice. 24 states is number one in 24 states, so half the union as well. Though I will note that allegedly Gen Z believes the face with tears of joy emoji is cringe, and apparently 1 out of 5 Americans believe it is excessively used. So that's number one. Number two is the rolling on the floor laughing emoji. So sort of that smiling laughing emoji that's like on its side. That's the ROOFL emoji. That's number two. That's number one, actually, in 11 different states. And then least popular and most disliked emoji in 35 states, the poop emoji, the pile of poop emoji, which used to be like apparently pretty big. And then in recent years, we've all turned sour on the pile of poop.
Pretty shocking, because I would have thought that would still be relatively popular. I think based on how often I might be receiving that.
Okay, boomer.
The other generational divide is with the thumbs up. So yes. Gen Z looks at a thumbs up as kind of like rude, like, okay. Whereas I think anybody
it's like
older.
A passive-aggressive thumbs up.
Yes, yeah. Where anyone older, I think, just takes it literally like, okay, cool, thumbs up.
Yeah, so that is something to be aware of, is that same emoji means different things to different generations. But it's always interesting. We have like a grandparents thread for photos of our daughter, and my brother does as well. And some of the grandparents very big on the emojis, like more emojis in a message than words, like flower, sunshine, rainbow. I think when you're retired, you have more time to emoji up your messages. I don't know if that's just my family.
No, we have a photo share as well that is chock full of emojis. I should say, though, that my daughter, who is 6, so technically Generation Alpha, there is nothing that she likes more than an emoji. So if she happens to get a hold of my phone or my parents' phones when she's over there, if I get a text from my mom, just say that's like 100 emojis, I'm pretty confident that my daughter has the phone.
So that's how the grandparents and the grandkids communicate.
Yeah, exactly.
Like fully on emoji.
So it's a bookend.
We'll wait for Gen Alpha for their interpretation of which emojis are cringe and which ones are cool in just a few years now.
Okay, let's get to the headlines here. Once again, starting with the Jeffrey Epstein case, President Trump lashing out at his own supporters. Is this the end of MAGA?
Jill, Trump woke up yesterday really not ready to let go of the Epstein thing and put some more fuel on the fire. We'll explain.
To the Middle East, where Syrian Druze and the Syrian government have reached a ceasefire in the southwestern part of the country as Israel takes military action to help the Druze tribe. Moshe will break all of this down.
Yeah, we'll break down the Middle East, even more complicated than you thought.
And it comes as the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, is urging Israel to investigate as a Palestinian American from Tampa was beaten to death in the West Bank. Back here in the U.S., the head of the DEA is warning about a surge in meth pills targeting college-age Americans. To the economy, President Trump says he is not going to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell for now. The newest toy craze, what is a Labubu?
Jill, I started seeing these in stores recently, and I was like, these guys kind of scare me initially, but I guess
they're like gremlins.
People find them cute. Yeah, like with the teeth. But I know some people, they love a Labubu.
Former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle addressed divorce rumors in their first joint comment.
Yeah, we'll play a clip from Michelle Obama's podcast.
And we have talked a lot about how AI could change everything from the job market to education. But how about changing the way that we talk? We are going to delve into a meticulous report on some words that we are using more often thanks to ChatGPT.
If you start taking your cues from ChatGPT, we're all going to be saying delve and meticulous very soon, all the time. Maybe it'll replace the words you guys find annoying that I repeat on this podcast, like essentially, basically, notably. I don't know. Some of you send me messages. You're like, Moshe, I can't anymore with those words. So I try my best, folks. That's most GPT for you.
I don't see that ending anytime soon, but I guess we could see.
In essence here, I need new phrases that allow me to come to a conclusion on things because you guys don't like the ones that I've been using.
And Moshe has on this day in history.
If you're just a small town girl living in a lonely world, you might know what song came out on this day in history.
And we dare you not to sing with us.
Born and raised in South Detroit.
Living in us. All right, we'll wait.
We're going to take the midnight train to anywhere here at the end of this podcast.
Okay, starting with the Jeffrey Epstein saga once again, this time thanks to President Trump really ratcheting up his attacks against Democrats and even his own MAGA base on Wednesday for their criticism of his handling of the issue. He is also doubling down on claims that the Epstein case is a hoax, although he hasn't really explained what part of it is a hoax. During an Oval Office media appearance on Wednesday, a reporter asked the president about his comments early Tuesday, which dismissed concerns about his administration's lack of transparency around the Epstein investigation and questioning why he is now calling it a hoax.
I ask you to clarify something you said this morning. You said this was all a hoax. Has your attorney general told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen of that?
No, it's not the attorney general. No, I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these characters and Comey before him. And it's a bad group. It started, actually, look at the Steele dossier that turned out to be a total hoax. The 51 agents, the intelligence, so-called intelligence agents, it was a hoax. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats. And some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
We should note, Moshe, it was the Trump Justice Department in his first term that filed charges and arrested Epstein originally. And it is some of the president's biggest supporters that have been most enraged about the Epstein case. People like Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, Matt Walsh. And some of Trump's top officials, including FBI Director Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, had implied for years that there was a government-wide conspiracy that they would get to the bottom of. To refresh after all that, on July 7th, Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi said basically nothing to see here. There's no client list and nothing more from this case would be released. Moshe, the question is, how much damage is this doing in MAGA world?
Yeah, I know there's like a move and some of the media are like, is this the end of MAGA? Like, no, this is not the end of MAGA. But MAGA, this is a fault line, a rift like we've never seen in like the last decade, I would say. I mean, maybe we saw some issues and a fissure there in the aftermath of January 6th before they all sort of came around with a new narrative around January 6th and brought Trump back and started to support him again. But ultimately here, during a presidency, at this stage of the presidency, this is the most division that I think we've seen as reporters, that even folks on the right have seen. Jill, for the first time, we're seeing Trump on his own platform post things on Truth Social and getting criticized. I mean, it's a place where like all there is just constant praise for him. And among a number of these influencers on the right who have carried water for him, supported him through thick and thin over the last decade are like, what up? Where did you go, Mr. President? Like, this has been a big issue that you've been making a big issue for years. So they're livid about this. And what's interesting, what I found interesting yesterday is that this was sort of petering out among some of the influencers. Trump had made some calls over the weekend to Charlie Kirk and Laura Ingraham and some of these conservative commentators. They said on Monday, okay, we're ready to move on here. We'll wait to see what else comes of this. And then Trump wakes up on Wednesday and he's like, I'm going to talk about this more. And now I'm going to call anyone on my side who's talking about this, basically a former supporter, and that you're carrying water for Democrats. So this whole thing is a hoax, which again, we don't know which aspect of this is a hoax. He's calling this whole thing a hoax, even though, again, we know the allegations against Jeffrey Epstein, they came out during his first presidency by his own Justice Department. And of course, they're the people who you mentioned, like Patel, like Bongino, and others who now are in charge after years of saying, when we're in charge, if we're in charge, we'll get all that info. Now they're in charge. They're like, nothing to see here. Let's all move on, folks. So these people were led along. These supporters were led along. And that includes, by the way, Pam Bondi, even a few months ago, while she was already Attorney General, setting all this up. So here's a mashup, by the way, that was put together on NBC a couple days ago of interviews. You'll hear at the top Glenn Beck interviewing Patel, more Kash Patel. You'll hear Trump in there. You'll hear Bongino in there. You'll hear Pam Bondi at the end. Here's about a minute of what you've been hearing and what the right has been hearing from their own side, including the people in charge, over the last couple of years. Take a listen.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is that. I mean, there's.
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything. Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
And this is something Donald Trump has talked about. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. Everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
By the way, the person who was talking about who's in those black books, that's Dan Bongino, the number 2 at FBI. At the end, you hear Pam Bondi in 2 different interviews saying, they're sitting on my desk. And this was in this term. So she set these expectations high. And then this is sort of Lucy in the football, right? Like they pulled the football out and MAGA fell on its butt to kind of carry forth the peanuts metaphor there. So understandably, you have even people on the right who are like, this is not a Democratic issue. Don't gaslight us. This is something you said you'd get to the bottom of, and you have not gotten to the bottom of here. And this is only reinforcing their feeling, which is what they've been told for years, that there was a cover-up happening here. And so what you have here is Trump saying, no more, like there's nothing to see here. After, again, they set up for years there'd be transparency around this. Jill, notably, Alan Dershowitz, longtime attorney. You've seen him on TV a lot. He defended Trump. He defended Epstein. He's been accused of various matters under Epstein. He was part of the Epstein's legal team. He was also a social acquaintance, apparently would stay at Epstein's house. He was accused by Virginia Giuffre of sexual assault when she was under the age of 18. Allegations Dershowitz denied, but there was a settlement there. Then Giuffre said she made a mistake in identifying him, but said he's not exonerated. So sort of complicated there. Nonetheless, in the Wall Street Journal, he sort of called out these issues, and he's built them up over time as well, saying there's no there as well. There was no client list. Epstein would have talked about everything. If he worked for the Mossad, he definitely would have mentioned it. There's that allegation that he worked for Israeli intelligence that there's no facts behind, but the allegation is out there because his acquaintance, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, had Mossad connections decades ago. That's sort of the tightest connection there. But ultimately, that's that. And then there are questions. Now, Democrats have never really been that interested in the issue, but now they're like, well, what is Trump trying to cover up? And certainly people with this rhetoric are like, well, is he trying to cover something up here? All we know about Epstein and Trump is they were friends back in the 90s. Apparently, the relationship ended poorly in the early 2000s over a real estate deal. What else? And then for years, Trump was like, we used to be friends, but not so much. Trump did ride on his plane a few times. There are photos of Trump, Melania, and Epstein through the years, but no allegations. Credibly, there was an allegation, a lawsuit filed by an anonymous woman claiming something about Trump at an Epstein party years ago. That lawsuit was pulled with no settlement that we're aware of. But beyond that, there have been allegations out there, which I know some people are saying, like, well, maybe Trump is trying to cover up for something he is written up in the documents, and who knows, right? But you would have thought, and we've talked about this before, that if there's something related to Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, there was a president not so long ago who had had a big incentive to release that, named Joe Biden, who was running for re-election against Trump. So if there was something with Trump in those documents, I would be shocked if Biden didn't somehow allow that to be leaked at some point. So that sort of reinforces that argument. But nonetheless, Jill, this sort of vehement, now going after his own side, criticism by Trump here is leading some folks on the right to be like, what's he trying to cover up? This is like next level.
Yeah, I thought that the Dershowitz op-ed, obviously taken with a grain of salt, if regardless of what you think of Dershowitz, was pretty interesting. And the way he ended it was by saying conspiracy stories attract readers, viewers, and listeners, but sorry to disappoint you, there is really nothing much to see here beyond what has already been disclosed. But Moshe, not sure if that's going to do it.
No, especially since Dershowitz has his relative ties there. But Dershowitz would know. I mean, he's like, there's no hidden cameras in the bedroom. So I was like, well, he slept in Epstein's bedroom. So like, he would know if there are cameras in the bedrooms, right? So, I mean, again, this has been so built up over time. It's tough to discern for many folks who've been, waiting for something more and chomping at the bit here and told there was something more to believe like that there's literally nothing else. Nothing. Not even an explanation as to why you can't release stuff. And we have one late addition here on Wednesday night that'll add even more fodder to some of these conversations. A key federal official who served as a prosecutor against Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell was fired late last night. Now, this one has multiple layers, but obviously the Epstein angle will be what a lot of people are talking about. Attorney General Pam Bondi firing Maureen Comey from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York on Wednesday evening. Now, if that name sounds familiar, Comey, she happens to be the daughter of the former FBI director, James Comey, who himself, President Trump sees as his arch nemesis. He fired James Comey as FBI director in his first term. Maureen Comey, James's daughter, has been a prosecutor for the Southern District of New York, most recently leading the prosecution against Diddy. Now, she has faced, and her whole team has faced criticism for their handling of the case, their failure to get a conviction on some of the most significant charges, in fact, overcharging, according to some, nonetheless failing on multiple counts there in the Diddy case. She also, several years ago, played a key role in the prosecutions of Jeffrey Epstein before, of course, he died, and then Ghislaine Maxwell, who they ended up convicting. So this all fuels more speculation here. Maureen Comey, again, multiple layers. He hates the Comey family, sees them as anti-Trump. There are legitimate criticisms over how she managed the Diddy case, but nonetheless, she also happened to prosecute Epstein and Maxwell. And so amid everything else we're talking about here, just another fact, another development related to this case as the president tries to put the genie back in the bottle, it's getting increasingly hard to.
Okay, now to the Middle East, where Israel has launched rare airstrikes against government targets in the heart of Damascus, the capital of Syria. A campaign, it says, is intended to defend the Druze minority in Syria and push Islamic militants away from its border. There are about 150,000 Druze in Israel and 700,000 more who live in Syria. They are loyal to whatever country they live in. And in Israel, they are seen as a loyal minority. Many serve in the military.
Yeah, so the Druze community in Israel, and again, sort of, it lives in an area that predates the kind of modern drawn borders, but they comprise in Israel about 2% of the population. For those unfamiliar with the Druze religion, they began as a sect, a 10th century offshoot of Islam, a branch of Shiite Islam at the time. There are roughly about 1 million Druze worldwide. Interestingly, Jill, it was one of these faiths that opened up and then they closed the religion. So basically, you had a few years there back 1,000 years ago to become Druze. Then they decided, because they were facing religious persecution, political persecution, that basically the community is now closed. So as of the year like 1050, you can't become Druze and can't convert to Druze. They, again, are loyal to the country that they live in or whatever border they fall in. So whether that's Lebanon or Israel. But Syria has been much more complicated for them because that's where they have faced persecution for years from the Assad regime, the initial Assad regime, then the Assad regime of the son, Bashar Assad. His father had ruled the country for years. And now the Syrian government, this new Islamic government, a offshoot of Al-Qaeda, right? But trying to show the softer, cuddlier side of themselves, saying, no, we're wearing suits now. We don't do that. But the Druze people there don't believe it, and they have reason to fear persecution given what has unfolded here in recent weeks and what they faced over time. There's a lack of trust there. And you have the new central government there, al-Jilani, trying to consolidate control, including weapons. He can't have multiple militias after years of civil war. And that's what the Druze are like. We're not giving up our guns and trusting you guys. Because frankly, we have decades to show as to why we shouldn't trust you. given how you're treating us. And so you have the Israelis coming here to the aid of the Druze in Syria.
So some background on this current conflict. In recent days, there have been clashes between a Druze militia and a Bedouin gang in the southern Syrian city of Sweida. That's about 25 miles from the border with Israel. Forces affiliated with the new Syrian leader, Ahmed al-Shara, have joined the local Bedouin militias to attack the Druze minority. And some horrific videos have been released online showing arson, assault, murder, and rival tribes forcibly cutting the beards of Druze elders. So now you have in this area clashes between the Druze, the Bedouins, militias affiliated with the Syrian government and the Syrian security forces. Human rights groups say at least 300 people have been killed. Axios reports that leaders from the Druze community in Israel really pressed the Israeli government to intervene, claiming that militias affiliated with the Syrian government were carrying out a massacre of Druze in that area. Israel reportedly warned Syria in advance of its attacks. On Wednesday, hundreds of Israeli Druze broke through the border fence with Syria in the Golan Heights and entered the buffer zone between Israel and Syria to try to reach Sweida and help their fellow Druze. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu put out a statement asking that the Israeli Druze stay in Israel, saying that the IDF will help the Syrian Druze who are under attack. Israel saying that it, quote, will not allow a massacre of Druze in Syria.
Yes, you got a lot of complicated things happening here. You got the Syrian government, the new government there trying to consolidate things. You have years of civil war with a lot of groups fighting each other. In this case, you also have a lot of Islamist rebels who until recently were part of a group that was like the Al-Qaeda offshoot of Syria, now saying, no, like, you know, we're here and we're going to be friendly to the minorities of Syria who've been persecuted for years. And then you got the Israelis in there trying to create an autonomous area on their border with Syria because they don't want ISIS and other groups that are in Syria getting close to their border. They also feel a kinship with the Druze in Syria as well, and like them as sort of a buffer between them and whatever unfolds there in Syria. So just a lot of complicating factors here. It's something we're going to watch. But certainly the new Syrian government there, al-Shara, there's been talk of him meeting Netanyahu at the UN in September, the U.S. dropping sanctions on Syria, trying to create stability there. But in the meantime, a lot of aftermath, a lot of mess here, and sadly, you know, continued persecution of various groups there. And so we'll watch all of that.
Another story we're watching from the region, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee is calling on Israeli authorities to aggressively investigate the killing of Saif Musalat. He is a 20-year-old Palestinian American. He's from Florida, and he was reportedly beaten to death by a gang of Israeli settlers in the West Bank village of Sinjil on Friday.
Yeah, notable here that Huckabee is calling for this investigation. He's very friendly to Netanyahu, very friendly to the Israeli government, but this, of course, very concerning as an American was beaten to death here. This all happened on Friday. Musalat was visiting from the Tampa area and was there to reconnect with relatives. This village, apparently, in this area, sees a lot of Palestinian expats from around the world come and visit. And then there was a confrontation. Israeli military officials say the confrontation began with Palestinians throwing rocks at Israeli settlers, injuring a couple. But that's when apparently the Israeli mobs killed Musalat and another Palestinian man there, and then also blocked an ambulance from getting to him. Apparently his younger brother was trying to call for help, but they were blocking the ambulance from getting to Musalat, and then he would die there after a couple hours without first aid. So a lot of concern here in the U.S. about what unfolded there. Also, the sort of vigilantism that's happening in the West Bank. For background here, the West Bank is sort of that kidney-shaped piece of territory that runs between the Jordan River and Israel. It's about the size of Delaware. There's about 3.5 million people who live there. It's home to some of the holiest sites of the three big monotheistic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Bethlehem is in the West Bank. You got East Jerusalem in the West Bank. You got where Joseph and various patriarchs are buried, allegedly, there. And so it has meant for years, it's been disputed area for years. I mean, people have lived there for 10,000 years, but especially in recent years, the Palestinians see it as core to a future Palestine. Many Israelis see the area, they call it Judea and Samaria, as part of historic Israel. It has been the subject of multiple peace negotiations through the years. There were various offers in the 90s, early 2000s to give most of it to a future Palestinian state, rejected at the time by Palestinian leadership, who felt the compromise was insufficient. Now they live in a reality where there's about 2.5 to 2.7 million Palestinians, and now 700,000 Israelis. They call them settlers because they've built settlements around the West Bank. The Netanyahu government and some other governments have been very open to building new settlements there. Those settlements making the reality of a potential land split very challenging because of the way things are built. It's all these little bubbles, disconnected bubbles of Palestinian territory, Israeli territory. And so even the compromise that we saw of the 90s, early 2000s, close to impossible today, just given the explosion on the Israeli population growth there. And now concerns from Europe and the Biden administration, and now you're even hearing it a bit from Huckabee about how the Israeli government, because certain right-wing parties are very into developing there, have sort of turned a blind eye there to Israeli settlers taking things into their own hands. And by that, I mean engaging in violence, in this case, killing reportedly a Palestinian American. So we'll wait to hear more details on all of that.
Time now for the speed read from ABC News. President Trump signed legislation on Wednesday to strengthen prison sentences for fentanyl traffickers. He was joined by congressional leaders and families affected by the fentanyl epidemic. The Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl Act, or HALT Fentanyl Act, which recently passed both the Senate and the House with bipartisan support, is a key priority for the president, who has claimed that the illicit flow of fentanyl is one of the underlying reasons for his tariff threats against Canada, Mexico, and China. The bill will place all fentanyl-related substances, specifically copycat versions of the drug, on the U.S. DEA's list of most dangerous drugs, classifying them as Schedule 1 under the Controlled Substances Act. The Trump administration argues that this will limit the incentive for cartels to create new synthetic fentanyl-like drugs as a way to evade the reach of the Controlled Substances Act. While the legislation has strong bipartisan support, some critics argue the bill could lead to harsh penalties for millions of people who struggle with addiction. And as federal authorities continue to crack down on the spread of fentanyl across the country, the DEA is also warning about a surge in the use of methamphetamine. DEA officials expressing particular concern over meth-laced pills that are being sold as drugs like Adderall to college-age adults.
Yeah, the current acting DEA administrator says that they expect seizures of meth to nearly double this year compared to last year. The DEA so far, the stats show 70,000 pounds of the drug has been seized this year. That is already matching 2024 year-long totals, and we're only halfway through the year. The DEA says the Mexican cartels currently control 100% of meth, from production to smuggling to distribution. And they're getting creative here in how they're getting it into the U.S., hiding packages of meth pills among green onions, among other things, as well as in shipments of celery. So beware there when you go to the grocery store to make sure that when you buy the celery, all you're getting is celery there. The cartels now have a huge focus on pills. And one of the things is it has less of a stigma than injectable drugs. And so that's one of the things. But the bottom line here is they say, if you're buying a pill off the street nowadays, you're taking your life into your own hands.
All right, to Wall Street and the economy from Mo News. President Trump says he is highly unlikely to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell, despite signaling to GOP lawmakers privately that he is close to firing the chairman.
Will he or won't he? It was the discussion again yesterday, Jill.
And the markets, by the way, falling when there was talk that he would fire Powell, and then recovering after there was talk that he would not.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I think it's less likely, just given the people around him are like, it's going to mess with the markets.
So the New York Times reported Wednesday that Trump has gone so far as to draft a letter for firing Powell. Trump has been demanding that Powell and the other Fed officials cut interest rates, but Powell has resisted, given concerns about inflation. He said he really wants to gauge the economic impact of Trump's tariffs before he cuts rates again. And then reinforcing the Fed's argument, as we reported yesterday, inflation ticked up last month. Many analysts are blaming that on the new tariffs. The central bank has traditionally made decisions independent of the White House. They look at the long-term health of the economy, not factoring in short-term political interests. Despite the tradition, though, Trump has repeatedly said Powell should have cut interest rates a long time ago. And he also claims, without evidence, that Powell cut rates before the 2024 election to give Kamala Harris a boost.
Jill, among the things Trump has called Powell to try to get him to lower interest rates, a knucklehead, lousy, a bad person, a numbskull, Mr. Too Late. He likes to call him Mr. Too Late.
That's what my husband calls me, Miss Too Late, as he's always waiting for me.
So you haven't lowered interest rates in your house, Jill?
No.
No.
And it hasn't worked, by the way. Calling out someone for being late, unfortunately, doesn't usually do
and
it.
Jerome Powell's like, I'm the freaking Fed chair here. My term is up in May. I'm going to retire after that. Call me what you will. I think Trump is trying to get him to resign by just saying all these things on a day-to-day basis. But again, he's been warned, even to the extreme, by some of the folks around him, being like, we're not sure whether it's legal for you to fire the Fed chair, given the independence of the Fed. Nonetheless, Trump very much wants him out. So he's trying basically everything in the book besides firing him to get him out of there. And a reminder here, Trump is the one who first nominated Powell back in 2017. He was then renominated for another 4-year term in 2021. And so again, he's set to be done in May. But Trump is looking for cause to fire him because he can't just fire him because he doesn't like him, he's been told. And so one of the things Trump is looking into is these renovations happening at the Federal Reserve headquarters, Jill. Apparently, they've spent $2 billion with a B on renovations, Federal Reserve headquarters, just off the National Mall there. They're looking to move a lot of people over there, but they're $700 million over budget. So Trump is alleging something's corruption. There's got to be corruption here, when in fact, that's usually just the government being the government, but who knows? And so ultimately, they're starting to sort of zero in on these Federal Reserve headquarters renovations. He's hoping that maybe that's a reason he might be able to fire Powell here. But then again, there's no assurance that anyone he then puts in will immediately lower interest rates because, as you mentioned, there's inflation concerns. And when there's inflation concerns, you don't lower interest rates because that brings more money into the economy, which can increase prices, increase inflation because there's more money out there. So it's one of the reasons with inflation risk, you don't lower interest rates. And one of the things that could increase inflation, tariffs, because prices will go up because you're adding to the cost of things. And so Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, said this week, playing around with the Fed can often have adverse consequences, absolutely the opposite of what you might be hoping for. And so a warning there for some powerful folks on Wall Street to Trump saying, don't do this.
From the In My Opinion or IMO podcast with Michelle Obama, the former first couple trying to put divorce rumors to rest, former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama appearing on the latest episode of IMO. It is a weekly podcast that is typically co-hosted by Michelle Obama and her brother, Craig Robinson. The former president stopped by to talk about fatherhood and raising young men, but he also addressed the rumors about their marriage. Robinson joked after Obama arrived in the studio, "It is so nice to have you both in the same room." Michelle Obama joking, "I know, because when we aren't, folks say we're divorced." Barack Obama continuing the joke, saying, "She took me back. It was touch and go for a while." But here are the Obamas talking about the divorce rumors.
These are the kinds of things that I just miss, right? So I don't even know this stuff's going on.
Right.
And then somebody will mention it to me and I'm all like, what are you talking about?
There hasn't been one moment in our marriage where I thought about quitting my man. And we've had some really hard times, but we have had a lot of fun times, a lot of adventures, and I have become a better person because of the man I'm married to.
Okay, don't make me cry now. Right at the beginning of the show.
That's sweet.
Don't let me start tearing up now.
So there you have it. The latest version of the Obamas trying to put this to rest. Michelle Obama earlier this year was on a podcast where she called this out, saying there's not an issue here. She's just trying to make choices for herself for the first time since, this really hit fever pitch when she didn't show up to the Jimmy Carter funeral, when she didn't show up to the Trump inauguration. Obama was solo there at those occasions. They explained that she just, effectively had other things to do, but very much every other former first lady was there. So it led to some questions and then led to questions about their marriage. And there's always rumors and speculation. And so things have hit the point where I guess they felt here that they needed to go on this podcast and actually literally say that they're okay. Not sure, though, whether that's going to actually put this thing to rest for good yet. And I should add, they have been married since 1992. So they have been together for 33 years now.
Okay, now to the latest toy craze from Bloomberg. The Chinese toy maker Mart International Group expects the soaring global popularity of its Labubu plush toys to drive a threefold increase in its first half revenue and even a bigger boost to profit. Labubu is a plush pointy-eared, serrated tooth monster. It is at the center of a global collectibles craze. Celebrities like Rihanna and Blackpink's Lisa are flaunting them. Last month, a human-sized toy sold for about $150,000 at an auction in Beijing. The company said this week that it expects at least a 350% gain in profit for the first half of 2025. What began as an obsession among young Chinese has exploded internationally. Fans line up for hours to get their hands on the cult toys. The surging popularity of Labubus has turned Pop Mart into a more than $40 billion company, and its shares have jumped nearly 600% over the past year.
Joe, they're trying to say this is bigger than the Furby. This is bigger than Beanie Babies. I don't know if this is bigger than Beanie Babies yet, but maybe we're getting there with Labubu. Pretty significant, though. And apparently, Market Snacks, the morning newsletter, is one of them that we read, says that part of the appeal here is the blind boxes, sealed packages with random toys inside, which have built a loyal base as well. So there's the buying of it, the opening of it is part of the fun here. Do you guys have Labubus in the house?
No, I'm very thankful that my daughter is not yet into this.
Yeah, we're also Labubu-less, but like my daughter's not even 2 yet, so I expect. I don't know how many years we'll go without a Labubu.
Hopefully by the time Olivia is catching on to trends, Labubus will no longer be a trend.
They'll be the next thing. There'll be something else.
Okay, from Scientific American, words frequently used by ChatGPT like delve and meticulous are getting more common in spoken language. This is according to an analysis of more than 700,000 hours of videos and podcasts. After its release in late 2022, ChatGPT reached 100 million users in just 2 months, making it the fastest growing consumer application in history. Since then, the AI tool has significantly affected how we learn, write, work, and create. And new research shows that it is also influencing us in ways we may not even be aware of, changing how we speak. Researchers first used ChatGPT to edit millions of pages of emails, essays, and academic and news articles using typical prompts like to polish the text or improve its clarity. Then they extracted words that ChatGPT repeatedly added while editing, like delve, realm, and meticulous, calling these the GPT words. And then the team analyzed more than 360,000 YouTube videos and 700,000 podcast episodes from before and then after ChatGPT was released to track the use of the GPT words over time. They compared the GPT words with other controls formed by mathematically weighting synonyms that were not frequently used by the chatbot, like synonyms for delve, which could include words like examine and explore. And the team's results show a surge in the GPT words in the 18 months after ChatGPT came out.
So we're all starting to talk like ChatGPT, apparently, because you all are using ChatGPT. By the way, there was an outage on Wednesday night, Jill, of ChatGPT, and it was like freaking people out. They were talking about it on social media. I imagine some people like crashing on some sort of assignment or like, oh my God, ChatGPT is down. It was down for a few hours. It came back. But apparently beyond delve, meticulous, a couple of other signs that you might be using ChatGPT: ever evolving, commendable, adept, invaluable, robust, synergistic. I mean, some of these, innovation, institution, efficiency, some of these like are words you might use, but I guess delve is a big thing. I mean, I like to delve into things, but I'm not like delving on a daily basis.
I know you're a big ChatGPT user, but I have not really noticed a change in the words you're using to speak.
No, I'm not using it enough in that way. I'm using it more for like to call up facts and like, explain or and synthesizing things. But still, like, I feel like as a journalist, I still, words are important to me. And so I try to, not put out ChatGPT content for y'all.
Not yet, anyway.
Use it as a tool, though. It means I get some more sleep at the end of the day. All right, we're going to end with On This Day in History. Most of these dates, way before ChatGPT was invented. On this day in 1902, American mechanical engineer Willis Carrier, you might know the name Carrier, completed drawings for what would become the first modern air conditioner. On this day in 1918, former Russian Tsar Nicholas II and his family were executed by the Bolsheviks. On this day in 1984, Ronald Reagan signed into law the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, which effectively raised the drinking age to 21 on this day 41 years ago. My mom likes to recall, and other people of a certain age like to recall, that there was a time where you could drink in America at the age of 18. That changed on this day in 1984. On this day in 1955, Disneyland was unveiled during a live TV special on ABC. And we end here with a bit of music history. If you knew the lyrics we were singing at the top, which, by the way, if you've ever been to karaoke, if you haven't heard Don't Stop Believin', you haven't been to a karaoke bar. On this day in 1981, 44 years ago today, Journey released Escape, their most popular album. Open Arms was the highest charting single at the time, but Don't Stop Believin', that's the one that endures from that album, one of the biggest songs of all time.
Great song, Moshe. And as somebody who went to Michigan for college, extremely popular there, given that one of the lyrics is just a city boy born and raised in South Detroit. I can't even say it.
So even in Ann Arbor, well, I imagine there's a lot of Detroit, right?
It's
Detroit
Michigan. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's Michigan. You get credit for it. That's it. And then on this day in 1995, a classic of the 90s, remember the days of Hootie and the Blowfish being number one on the charts on this day in 1995, turning 30 years old today. I Only Want to Be With You.
Moshe, one of these days we should delve into what happened to Hootie and the Blowfish.
Well, the Blowfish are gone. Hootie's been still rocking it. Darius Rucker. He had the big remake of Wagon Wheel. That's like the version of Wagon Wheel people listen to now.
Not ringing a bell. What's Wagon Wheel?
Wagon Wheel? Wagon? Oh, come on. Hold on. Mama rock me.
Is it weird that I have no idea what this is?
Oh. Jill, you haven't lived.
All right, I will, straight up after this podcast, I will be listening to Wagon Wheel by Hootie, sans the Blowfish.
Well, officially written by Bob Dylan, but like Hootie has his version of it, right? So, I mean, and now he goes by Darius Rucker, but like Darius Rucker, aka Hootie of the Blowfish, Bye Bye Blowfish. Now you got Darius Rucker, Wagon Wheel, 2025. That's your quick 30-year summary of Hootie.
I learned something new every day on the Mo News Podcast. I hope you guys do too. Thank you for listening to the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
By the way, I was just asking about the Blowfish. He did an interview recently where Hootie said they're still friends. He's still friends with said Blowfish, even though he left to go do his
Yeah, sure.
We'll end it there.
Thanks for listening to the Mo News Podcast. Have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed.